Alright, so a while ago I made a video on a Yuumi, and it was one of the most bizarre things I had seen in a long time. 2,000 games in a single season, 29 to 30 average games per day, very little breaks, all within the space of 60 days. And as it turns out, I managed to grab some updates for you all. So, let us get into things. However, first and foremost, as opposed to asking you to subscribe to the channel, I'm going to give you a chance to compete with me for it. So, on the count of 3, we're going to play rock, paper, scissors, and if you lose, you are under threat of death going to subscribe, right? So, here we go. 1, 2, 3. We managed to nail like 5 people there, so let's go. It's time for you to subscribe. Steven, yeah. That's right. One guy called Steven who just threw scissors is shaking right now. So there was a reason for me waiting as long as I did to give an update on this. There has been a lot of speculation around this player. I'm not the only person that made a video on this whole situation. I saw people even go as far as to say that that this was a science experiment with a real-life cat, and that the player had a mat tied to inputs, that they had a real-life cat walking around, and wherever the cat went, an input was pressed. Now, that's a very funny idea that if I had the electronics or the engineering background, I would most certainly do with Charlie, but it begs the question, if this was the case, why would you, firstly, go ranked, secondly, do this more than one time, never mind 2,000 other different times, and thirdly, surely there has to be some kind of, like, animal labor laws? Like, you're trying to tell me that a cat is going to listen to a human being and walk around a mat for 18 hours a day? I wish I could say for certain that the person who suggested this was joking, but I can confirm, amongst other things, that this is absolutely not the case. After speaking to a few people, including Riot themselves, I can now confirm that this person has been banned from League of Legends, and going to their op.gg can confirm this suspicion, but why exactly? Like, was it for inting? Was it for scripting, botting, banning of their own health, like to stop them playing the game because it was maybe just like they were addicted and they couldn't stop themselves from doing so? It turns out it was just a bot, or like it seems that there was some human input in it at some point down the line, but it was a script that I think we all figured that out for the most part, but there's just such a bizarre story behind it. And I posted this video, and in my original video of the thing, which if you want to look at, feel free to, it's at the top right of the screen, but I was pretty certain it was a bot as well, but at the same time, on the like 1% chance occurrence that it was a human being who just loved League of Legends, I really did not want to hurt somebody's feelings who presumably lived and breathed League of Legends. But what exactly did the bot do? From what I can figure out at a cursory glance, Yuumi attached herself to whichever person happened to be queued into the bot role, regardless of who it was. That is the reason why in my original video, which should be playing in the background, the Yuumi decided to attach herself to Ahri, who actually had swapped with the person in AD carry before the game began, and she ended up following the Ahri around the entire time. She did not discriminate as to what champion it was or account for swaps. Whoever was in bot role was now gonna get attached to. And as well as that, it seemed like the Yuumi was healing on a timer, but it wasn't like a static timer, or it wasn't like a static amount of time. I tried timing in between heals, and it was never quite the exact same amount of time between the E presses. But from what I can gauge, it seemed that it would just like roll a number between the minimum cooldown of Yuumi's E and then like a slightly higher amount to make it appear like it was human behavior. So like it ended up healing randomly under tower, it healed during some fights, but it was never exactly like the 20 so seconds that Yuumi's cooldown was up, right? So like it was a random integer or whatever, right? A random number between 20 seconds and like, let's say 30 seconds. So it would just pick one between that. Every single game, it would also buy the same items. And from what I can tell, Yuumi's ultimate seemed to be triggered by having like multiple enemy champions being within a certain range of the AD carry that she's on at the time. Regardless of the situation, regardless of if it was appropriate or not, whether or not the enemy were low, full HP, never going to die, if there was like a point in ulting, like if you're running away, well I guess if you're running away it makes sense, but if you're gonna get out or what have you, it didn't really matter. I think that was the trigger, but I can never be sure. But what a headache this has been. Like, I've really been, like, trying to figure out as much information as I can over the last couple of weeks for you all. And I'm like, nobody cares. Like, really, nobody cares. But I've invested so much time into digging as much as I could that I'm like, I gotta follow through. But like, how do I know for certain that the person behind this was using a bot? Well, I spoke to Riot, who confirmed with their anti-cheat team that this was definitely not a human being playing the game, which I think we all kind of figured out. I tried to probe for more information, but they were very clear that they could not give me any more info on what they did, how they detected it, or what exactly they detected. They just confirmed it was not a human being. The weirdest thing about it all is that this was also not the only account that was doing this. This was the second account that had been flagged to Riot that was doing something like this or very similar to this. The other being on EU West. So whether this was the same person running multiple accounts on like a bot farm, testing something out, or just happens to be two completely different people doing this for what seems like literally no reason whatsoever, is going to remain a mystery to me. I also had someone in my chat mention on my live stream that they literally just added the person who ran the account that was doing this, and presumably at some point there is some human interaction where the person maybe does something, or maybe it gets stuck and they decide to like do something to it, because the Yumi account apparently accepted the request and very happily admitted that they were not playing League of Legends for 30 games worth of time per day. But it's nuts, because like all it does is like open up more questions to me. Like, how was this not detected, first and foremost? Like, I'll be the first to admit that Riot's anti-cheat is like pretty good. I have never ever played against a scripter, or I mean, I have no idea. Like, statistically the chances I have are probably pretty high, after having played like 3,000 something plus games over the last like number of years. But I have never ever noticed that somebody has been scripting. But this is very clearly like a script of some kind made to replicate certain actions, buy the same items, and permanently queue 30 games a day. Whether you consider the 770 games won by this account as ruined games or not, this account has managed to like negatively impact just under 2,000 games in 60 days. And the literal only reason that it got nuked was because I made a video on it, resulting in it being banned a day or so later. So it also leads me to the question, why on earth did you do this? I have racked my brain over the last like 2 weeks since I made that video, wondering just what the hell the person was attempting to do. I cannot pin down a reason at all. Was it to de-rank an account to iron so that it could be sold? If so, why play 2,000 games and draw attention to yourself? Surely after a couple hundred games, right, you'll be solidly in iron, maybe even less than so. According to the tier graph on their account, if this was the case, the job was already done by the start of February, so why continue for another month and a half if you're gonna just sell it off anyway? The account, like, is no doubt worth something, right? Like, account names that are a person's first name, and the account name was called Hillary, have like some vague value in League of Legends, so I mean, I guess like this isn't an account that I think is worthless. Like, I don't know whether it was to like farm levels and farm IP to sell it off, because if so, why play ranked when you can just farm bot games with 4 other bots and nobody will ever detect it in a million years? Like, was it to test a script? If so, why are you writing a Yumi script? There is presumably other champions you could do it for that would be far more in high demand. And if you are doing such a thing, who in their right mind? Like, there's certain things that come up on credit card builds that are difficult to explain to your significant other. And I think a Yumi script probably is one of the highest ranking things that you could ever explain to your wife why you've spent $30 on one of those things. I don't think anybody's going to buy a Yumi script, especially if it does this, to be honest. But yeah, the scariest other option is just to see if you could. And this is rich coming from me, granted, because so many times somebody comes into my stream chat like during a terrible idea where I'm going AD Cassidon or Cassassidon if you're extremely highbrow, intelligent IQ. They ask why this though, and all I can really say to it is because I can, and I want to see if it works. And the scariest thing of all is that maybe that's all there is to it. But I've tried my goddamn best, but I guess I will never know more than what we already know so far. And it may just haunt me for the rest of my days. I'm putting a bookend on this chapter of my life. From now on, this chapter of Rossboomsocks is now post-Yumi. We're putting this back. We're going to try and push this all the way back into 2020. It's not 2021 worthy. You know what? I'm glad to see what I could. I'm glad to find out what I could about it. But until the next time, Hillary, if you're watching this, I'll see you later, Space Cowboy. If you decide to make maybe a Jana script or something, whatever you decide to do. I'm sure we'll run into each other down the line. Have a fantastic day, though, everybody. Thank you very much for watching this one. This is insane. I'm sorry. This is such a stupid video. But maybe you found it interesting. Have a good one.